has mercy on them, receive them in eternal bliss, and continues guiding their families and giving them strength to cope in their absence. Having said that, and having listened to the debate that has gone on this afternoon, I don't have much to add on what happened in Addis. What happened in Addis happened. Many people have speculated why it happened without producing any concrete evidence, but we take it as that. The fact is that we did not get the seat through the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, but we rallied behind the flag, as it's required of anybody to be patriotic. We rallied behind the flag, and so it went. But behind being patriotic is also being accountable. We have had it said on this floor that the Right Honorable former Prime Minister visited 51 countries. It would be, and also we saw a motley crowd of Kenyans, a mixture of all manner of characters in Addis Ababa during the voting. Some even engaging in shamanical expressions of anticipations of victory. I would pray that in the interest of accountability and transparency, this House be informed how much money was spent on the campaign. Was it private money? Was it public money? And if it was public money, who authorized it? Was it in the budget of Parliament? Or was it in some mischievous arrangements between the Treasury and elements in the executive? Because it is this kind of escapades where there's no accountability that are used to steal money from Kenyans. So my interest is that the campaigns are over. We rallied behind the flag, but let us be informed how much money was taken out of the Treasury, if at all, and what procedure was used to authorize that. Because I've checked the Appropriation Acts of Parliament, I've not found any provision for that campaign. And so I would want to know how much was spent on that campaign, and if Parliament was not involved, who authorized the Treasury to spend that money, if the money came from the public? The other issue that I would like to speak to, yes, please inform me.
Would you like to be informed by Senator Eddy?
If it's credible.
Proceed, Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that the issue that the Senator of Busia is raising is a patent issue, and he has raised a dichotomous issue. One is the issue of the campaign, and the other is the issue of those who went to Addis Ababa. It will be remiss of me not to speak on one that does affect me directly, because I did travel to Addis Ababa, and I did interact with the people who traveled to Addis Ababa to be able to give support to our own. I want to inform the Senator of Busia on the issue of those who traveled. Majority of whom I interacted with, and I also traveled to give Raila Amolo Odinga support. We self-sponsored to go to Addis. And if you need the evidence to that effect, I am willing to table as many as possible of those people who believed that indeed supporting our own, just like we'll go to a rugby sevens in South Africa, or you will go to watch our sister Kipyegon run in a marathon, or you will go to watch Kipchoge in Olympic, some of us were patriotic enough to believe that this matter was very important for the country, that we self-sponsored ourselves to get to Addis Ababa. That is an important information that I think that patriots like yourself should understand, that patriots like us did take that chance and did take that hint to be able to go and support Baba Raila Amolo Odinga in Ethiopia. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Eddy. You can proceed, Senator Okie.
Thanks for the unverified information. I would love to see you table that you have promised to table, to demonstrate to this House that people self-sponsored. In the absence of that, you hold your horses and forever keep quiet. Moving on,
Senator Okia, the Honorable Senator actually offered before being prompted that he could table the evidence. So it shouldn't be an area of contention. He can bring that evidence and table.
It's not an area of contention, but it's an attempt to sugarcoat a tablet. And that sugarcoating the one I'm guarding against.
Which you would conclude after he tables and you find it's sugar-coated. That's the only time you
he needs to produce
have rendered a fair judgment on the issue.
As well as Soyinka tells us
So Senator Eddy, you will be allowed to table that evidence that you paid your own ticket and you paid your own. Okay.
Thank you, my
Proceed.
brother. Having said that, many issues aside, a lot has been said about foreign policy. Where I stand, foreign policy basically means how attractive are you to others, or how threatening are you to others. If you have no nuclear weapons, you cannot be threatening in the modern world. So you must have something attractive. Therefore, to be attractive, it means that your domestic policy, your domestics are okay. So, for me, I think the problem we have is, in framing what you call a foreign policy, is on the domestic front. You cannot have a foreign policy worth talking of if the rule of law is disregarded. People who have got a different opinion are abducted. Foreigners who seek refuge here are kidnapped and repatriated, extradited, or whatever the word is, to their countries without due process. All those things, when you can't pay your schools, your universities, your hospitals, everything is in a mess. Your debts are unserviceable. You can't talk of a foreign policy when the home front is on fire. You can only talk of a foreign policy when and if the home front is proper. And so when you talk of the home front, we have got this thing of governance by merchant values. Some may call it deal making, but it's almost what you talk of the merchants of Venice in the plays of Shakespeare. Here we are, that today in Nairobi, we have the Janjaweed being allowed to open an office. This is a genocidal organ that tried to eliminate black people, and it killed millions of black people. It was not even religious, because the people in Darfur are largely Muslim, profess the Muslim faith, but they were killed because they were not Arabs by this group. It's a record, it's a matter of public notoriety, that the Janjaweed, which has now been given an office in Nairobi to operate from, has a history of trying to eliminate black people. What do we stand for as a country? Who has benefited from that process? Where is the due process leading to that particular decision? Article 10 of the Constitution is very clear. And it's very clear by stating that policy decisions, and that tax the executive, must be subjected to public participation. At the very least, a paper should have been tabled in Parliament on the issue of Kenya wishing to go to bed with the Janjaweed. Then we could debate it. Also surprising is that this thing has happened so soon after the Addis Ababa debacle. I call it a debacle because looking at the evidence, such things don't happen overnight. There must have been negotiations and must have been interactions between this group and the regime running the Republic of Kenya. So, there must have been intelligence that Kenya cannot produce a chair of the AU who can be a neutral arbiter because the government is in bed with factions that are responsible for undermining the rule of law and issues of governance on the continent. So I'm sure people knew. And we know some time back, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto was proposed to be chair the negotiations over the Sudan. And we remember the government in Khartoum stating in very clear terms that it could not allow it because they perceived him to be biased. A few years later, you can see that their fears were not idle. Their fears have been proven by the presence of the Janjaweed here. We have seen matters happening in this country where even a group pronounced its opposition to the government of the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, from Nairobi. So, what is Pan-African about that? When you look at the genocidal wars in the Congo, what's Pan-African about the Janjaweed being here? When you look at the genocide in Darfur, in the Sudan. Madam Speaker, I think we need to take a good look at ourselves as Kenyans in the mirror and ask ourselves, what is going on? I'm almost being persuaded that we are getting to a point whereby the Republic might need to invoke Article 144 of the Constitution. For those who care to do, you can check out what Article 144 of the Constitution provides. Because some things that are happening defy logic, defy any attempt at understanding them, and can only happen outside the sphere of a well-constructed syllogism. Madam Speaker, it's a very, very heavy heart that today I stand in this august house as a powerless legislator, a house that has totally failed to have any impact on the executive, a house that has got absolutely nothing to write home about its achievements. Absolutely nothing. Even if you gave them the back of a postage stamp and a felt pen, they would not feel it with any achievement you have had in terms of checking the executive. We have not, and we don't understand the insignia on our own desks here. Deputy Minority Whip, Minority Whip, Minority Whip, and a Majority Leader, whatever, which is a clear statement that this House is not an extension of the executive. We'd be having a government side and an opposition side if the executive was given from this House. The executive in this country was directly elected by the people to be accountable to this House. The structure of the Constitution is such that the president must be lobbying and begging this House to allow him to do what he wants to do as a check. If it's appointments, they come to Parliament for clearance, be it in the National Assembly or here. If it's a budget, it comes to Parliament for approval. But things have been turned on their head. And today, it's MPs kneeling before the president instead of the other way around. So I'm totally ashamed and embarrassed that I belong to a parliament that is totally incapacitated for reasons that I don't know. Everything has been turned on its head. And as a result, the executive behaves like it's a law upon itself. That's why the Janjaweed can be given an office in Nairobi at the whims of an individual and claim that the people of Kenya have welcomed the Janjaweed to come and run their genocidal government from Nairobi. It's extremely sad. Madam Speaker, I plead with my fellow members of Parliament in the Senate and in the National Assembly, senators and assemblymen and women.
Senator Osotsi, you have an intervention? Have you pressed for intervention?
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt Senator Okiya Omtata, but I think it's important for us to be told more about this Janjaweed, because my little knowledge about Janjaweed is that it's a terrorist group that operates in the Sahel region, Sudan, Chad, and Yemen. And Senator Omtata, whom I respect a lot, and I know he has a lot of information, he has said that they have opened an office in Kenya. So I think this is a serious matter that even me as a representative of the people, I would like to know more about that. Have these people opened an office in Kenya, and what action can we take as a representative of the people? Because this Janjaweed, which translates to devils on a horseback, that is what it means in English, is a destructive group, is a terrorist group, which was even defined as a terrorist group by the United Nations. So if indeed they are in Kenya, and I don't want to doubt what Senator Omtata is saying, because he has always proven that whatever he says, he has researched very well. So I think I need to know more about that, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senator Okiya Omtata, you know, under the Standing Order 105, you have a responsibility for a statement, issuing statement of fact for everything you allege while you are debating. You can proceed to give information that supports what you have alleged.
Incidentally, Senator Osotsi, thank you for asking me to do the obvious. I always carry my laptop, and I've just clicked in the word search under warring factions in the Sudan. And what has come up, Sudanese, under the heading Sudanese Civil War 2023 to present on Wikipedia, that is HTTP.
Honorable Senator, are you presenting social media facts,
Not a social
What
media
is
fact.
it you
This
are
is
presenting
an internet resource. It's a Wikipedia, an internet resource. Yes, it's an authority, and I've referred to it. So the two opponent factions consist of the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, under Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and its allies, collectively the Janjaweed coalition, under the Janjaweed under Hemedit.
What is your point of order, Senator Eddy? Senator Boni, give Senator Eddy time to raise his point of order.
Madam Speaker, responsibility of fact 105. If you read that entire standing, Madam Speaker, there is a standard of proving facts in this House. A Parliament of Kenya, the Senate of Kenya, want to depend on Wikipedia as a source that can be tabled in the House to prove fact, Madam Speaker. What are we doing? Who is the author of Wikipedia? Wikipedia is a source that anybody, just like social media, can go and post anything on Wikipedia. Are we going to depend on Wikipedia sources in this House, Senator Boni Alwale, the majority whip? Is this where the House of Representatives has reached, to depend on Wikipedia sources in the House? I think that the spirit of standing order number 105 is such that when there is any issue of fact that is raised in this House, then an honorable senator must then produce a reliable source that is available to all senators, but not social media facts and figures and Wikipedia sources that, Madam Speaker, have got voices from all over that you cannot be able to point to one person. So I request the honorable senator that, yes, there is a very serious issue that is bringing to the House, but let his source be credible, and let his source be something that we can all believe in and appreciate. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Okia.
I urge my brother, Senator from Migori, to dismount from his emaciated and starving high horse and understand that Wikipedia always has links to sources where the information comes from. But that as it may be, I would also like to bring in another authority. I was still producing authorities.
Okay, Senator Okia, it's your responsibility to give verified information whose authors may be known or the source is credible. So yes, I will now request you or guide you to give the author of the information you're giving or the source that you are giving from that Wikipedia.
Well, I'm here. I've left the Wikipedia alone. I'm here at https://www.cfr.org/global-conflict-struggle-Sudan. By its heading of the document is called Civil War in the Sudan, by the Center for Preventive Action, a highly recognized body.
Senator Okia, I appreciate what you're reading, but you're the only one in this House right now who has access to what you're reading.
My lady,
I am not able to see the source.
We have got computerized systems here, and if people are not able to use them, I cannot be responsible.
I'm guiding you, sir.
I cannot be responsible for the ignorance of members.
Senator Okia, I'm giving you a guide.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
I want you to table that evidence in the normal procedural manner, which evidence is tabled in this House or statement of facts are verified in this House, if you're able to table it within the next short while, it's okay, table it. I can also have a look at it. And you can also table it.
My lady, yes.
I'm guiding you to make it easier because this is an important question. It's a serious question that cannot be trivialized. You're talking about Janjaweed. It's been named as a terrorist group. Can you table that evidence in the normal fashion so that senators can also get a copy of it? You can print it and table it. Senator Boni, would you like to be informed by Senator Boni?
Yes, all of them can inform me.
Yes, Madam Speaker, indeed, this is a very important issue. And we should not muscle the Senator of Busia without paying attention to what he's saying. Wikipedia is an encyclopedia which is referred to in Hawaiian language. In Hawaiian language, Madam Speaker, encyclopedia is referred to quick, fast speed. So to challenge its authenticity is to pretend that an encyclopedia is not an authoritative document. Secondly, Madam Speaker, Janjaweed is equally defined as a terrorist group in Sahel region, unless the senator of Migori is an ignorant man, and I know he is not. If you are uncomfortable with the truthfulness of Senator Omtata, then say it. Because he is not the first to mention the word Janjaweed in this country. It is in public domain. And in parliamentary palace, Madam Speaker, as I informed His Excellency Okia, matters that are in public domain are admissible. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Beyond the point, Senator Boni, beyond the point of information on the encyclopedia, I think the question was whether Janjaweed is set in Kenya, is located in Kenya. It's not denying if that was what Senator Eddie raised, whether Janjaweed is having official location in Kenya. Is your point? Would you like to be informed by Senator from Nandi? Okay. Senator Cherarige.
Madam Speaker, on a point of information, I want to inform that the issue of Janjaweed, Madam Speaker, started in 2003, and by 2013, the Janjaweed created an offshoot called Rapid Support Forces, RSF. So when you refer to RSF and Janjaweed, they are of same family but different species if you did biology. So people who did biology and brilliant like us who went to Capside Boys High School, who has produced two presidents, Moi and Ruto, then you are able to understand. So I think the issue should be, if RSF is in Nairobi, is it the same as Janjaweed is in Nairobi? That can be left to the jury to decide. I thank you.
What is your point of order, Senator Eddie? Is it on the same issue?
No, Madam Speaker, you know, when there is aspersions thrown to a member, it becomes a very important issue. And that is 101. I think the entire 101 applies to what the Senator of Kakamega has just thrown as aspersions on my character. Because, no, I haven't even said what I'm saying. Why are you guilty? Before I say what I want to say.
Under which standing order have you
101. 101, Madam Speaker, talks about throwing aspersions on members. It talks also about what can be considered abusive or insulting language. Madam Speaker, if you read 1013, you will find what the standing orders guides on this. Madam Speaker, there is what we call syntax in the language with which the Senator of Kakamega has implied that I'm ignorant on these issues. And the word ignorant, Madam Speaker, I find it insulting. That is one. Number two, Madam Speaker, he has also implied that I am not comfortable with the truth that the Senator of Busia wanted to bring in the House and still bring in the House. Madam Speaker, I beg to make it clear that the Senator of Busia intimated that Janjaweed is based in Kenya, for which he went ahead to seek the source of Wikipedia to prove that. And all I wanted to know, because it's a very important issue of national security interest in our country, and we cannot let it go. All I want to know is that, is there a source that we can depend on that shows that Janjaweed is based in Kenya? Because if it is based in Kenya, we must take serious security matter on this. We cannot just let it pass. A senator cannot say that Janjaweed is based in Kenya and let it pass as a simple issue. So, Senator Boni, I hope that you get where I was coming from. I am not in any way refusing that Janjaweed has been a terrorist group that has terrorized the people of Sudan. That is true. That's factual, and that is in the public domain. But is it true that they're based in Kenya now? If that is true, we must deal with it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Eddie, while you may be in order to raise a point of order, first, your first point was overtaken because Senator Boni was not on his feet when you raised that issue. So ideally, you should raise it. So that is overtaken, but I think you have done a good clarification on what you needed to know from the honorable senators as to whether Janjaweed has an office in Kenya. So, Senator Okia, proceed to answer that question directly.
My time be expanded because...
Give him back his minutes that have been consumed by the points.
First of all, Senator Eddie is trying to take credit for what he didn't do. It is Senator Osoti who wanted to know that clarification. Senator Eddie only contested the source I gave. So Senator Eddie cannot stand here and begin thumping his chest as a knowledgeable man who wanted to distinguish. You only challenged Wikipedia. You didn't understand what Wikipedia was, and Honorable Khalwala has helped you to understand what Wikipedia is, including telling you about its Hawaiian origins. Now, my lady, in terms of taking him to standing orders, I don't think that we are still in the age of brick and mortar as security. Today, we don't look for real wealth on the ground. We look for it in space. We have got these screens here. Are they decorations? We have got these iPads here that every senator has. Are they decorations? When I give a URL, a universal resource locator, for a document on the internet, I expect this House to have the capacity to access the document and not to be told that I should bring in paper which results in the destruction of trees. I'm bringing no paper into this House. I'm digital, I'm futuristic. My eyes are on the stars, not on the ground. Yes. In the age when the AI is coming in and we see talking of paper, brick and mortar, no way. I challenge the House to log into the URL I've given and display the information on the screens in this parliament. Now, here and now. And the individual senators who cannot use their gadgets should ask for a refresher course to be taken for induction so that they can access the internet using the gadgets in this office. The taxpayers do not enable us in vain. They don't enable us in vain. So when I carry my document, my gadgets here, and I talk as a modern man in the 21st century, I am addressing modern people in the 21st century. None of the information I give is meant for Stone Age people. And if you belong to the Stone Age, you don't belong to where I belong. Are we together there? So, I want the matter to be settled there, Madam Speaker. I'm not presenting any papers here. I'm not printing any documents. I've given the URL. It's the duty of this House, an individual member, to access the information in the universal resource locator I've given. Madam Speaker, Senator, I sit. Thank you for the time.
Senator Okia, you still have a responsibility to indicate your source, whether Janjaweed is in Kenya or not in Kenya. He has to answer that question. Senator Okia, don't avoid by the use of IT and paper and manual paper. Present that, please.
The problem of trying to fit a jet engine on a Volkswagen is what I'm dealing with. Yes, my information from, I would like to be informed, Madam Speaker, by the
Senator, I have first directed you what to do, to give the evidence and
but
to
you have
guide
refused.
whether Janjaweed is.
Can you display the document I've referred to on the screen, then I'll point to it and walk people through it? Oh, that's what I'm requesting. Yes. I've given a universal resource locator for the information I've given in this House. Can you access the document?
Clerk, are you able to display that? Just hold. Wait a bit. Wait. Are you able to display that right away? Senator Okia, I direct you to go to the technical team, table the URL you quoted, the source of that website, and then it will be dealt with. It is your responsibility once again. It is not the responsibility of the clerk to table for you. You table the evidence with the clerk. Give the information. Give the details of what you need displayed.
Madam Speaker,
it is not at the table.
Your authority is limited to the confines of this building during debate. You cannot give me instructions.
But the clerk is here. Can you table it now, Senator Okia? I have directed you.
I can read it out.
Write it down for them. I have given you the guide.
They are skilled in writing.
I have given you the guide. Senator Okia, you are bordering on being disorderly now because you are disobeying the chair.
Okay, Madam Speaker,
order.
If that's the attitude you are taking, I sit down, I cease my contribution until I get to a forum where I can be understood. Thank you.
Address. You are out of order, Senator Okia Omutata. Senator Eddie.
He is. Because
proceedings cannot go on like that.
Madam Speaker, 105, the responsibility of statement of fact. Madam Speaker, I think you are letting... Madam Speaker, may I be protected from Senator Okia Omtata? Madam Speaker, I want Senator Okia Omtata to understand from point of order number 105 that nobody is disputing the importance of the issue that is raising. In fact, that issue is so important to all of us. It's very important to the country. But Senator Okia cannot say something that he cannot substantiate and run away from it. I think that is disorderly, Madam Speaker, because the source online, and nobody was requesting for a paper source, even the sources online are not all credible. Madam Speaker, that's the argument I've been making here. That if you say you've got a source online, it's not about whether people cannot be able to access online sources. It's about can you rule, Madam Speaker, on what is the threshold of credible sources that must be given in this House, whether paperwhite or online? Because if the Roki is going to run away from giving us sources because he knows that the source online is not credible, that's not fair to this House, Madam Speaker. And I think that we expect a ruling on that, because I would want to know, as a citizen of Migori, if Janjaweed is in this country and have an office in this country, then I must know how I protect my people in Migori County. Then I must know I participate in this House to make sure that our security is guaranteed, Madam Speaker. It cannot be said as a passing statement, as a political statement, and let to go like that, Madam Speaker. I request for your ruling on the credibility of sources, Madam Speaker, under 105, and number 2, whether Senator Okiya Omtata is obliged to be able to provide that source online or in paper for us to follow. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
To who? Who are you informing? You cannot inform the Speaker. Before I rule on the point of order by Senator Eddy, I'll give Senator Kenywa an opportunity to raise his point of order. His point of clarification.
Madam Speaker, I was just concerned because Senator Okiya Omtata is indicating the site or the source of his information. Why was it difficult because for him, whether the source is correct or not correct, it is up to the table and the Senate to rule on that matter. And he had given the site. Why were we getting concerned? We would have checked on it. If it is incorrect, he was supposed to have been told on the spot that the site is not admissible in the Senate.
Senator Kenywa, it is not in order for senators to conduct business in an unusual, difficult manner for the Secretariat or for the clerks. I actually directed and ruled that he proceeds to give the details of the website to the clerk's desk. That's his responsibility, under Standing Order 105. He did not comply with that ruling. In fact, he defied and walked out, which is out of order. Can you wait? I finish. Can you wait for the chair to finish dispensing on that issue? So he did not wait. He defied the ruling and walked out without giving the details. My ruling is abiding on the point of order raised by Senator Eddy, and I'll give a direction on the matter. What is it, Senator Osotsi? You speak after Senator.
It's just a clarification on 105. I think this is a house of debate. And in this house, the Constitution requires that we have freedom of speech. Madam Speaker, and I wish you give me just a minute to explain what I'm about to raise. The point of order 105, I have sat in this house for 2 years and several months, and I'm realizing that 105 standing order must be used to promote debate in this house. Madam Speaker, I think there is no crime in what Senator Omtata has said. We should be able to table evidence electronically. I am an IT expert and I know what it means. Madam Speaker, as I sit here, I raise a matter in this house about Moi University. And I was told to substantiate, which I did electronically, and I presented a document. Up to now, Madam Speaker, I have not heard from the chair about the status of my substantiation. To date, you remember it was last year before we went for break. I am still waiting for the House to tell me the status of my substantiation. So every time members raise issues and members on the opposing side quote 105, and that's how we kill debate in this house. Senator Omtata has raised a very important issue. And I rose on a point of order to request that he be given time to explain the presence of Janjaweed in this country. And I believe he was doing so. But we did not give him time to exhaust his explanation. And electronic evidence is there in law, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, let us not allow 105 to be misused to curtail debate in this House.
Senator.
And for that matter, Madam Speaker, I am demanding communication on the matter of Moi University, which are substantiated in this House. And your chair has not communicated to this House on the validity of that information, Madam Speaker.
Senator Okia, the substantiation on the Moi University is an issue that can be handled and will be handled by the chair. It will be communicated, and I guide the clerk to ensure that an opportunity is offered for that evidence to be reviewed and a ruling to be made. But let me say this. Senator Okia was not denied an opportunity to actually present the online evidence. Soft evidence was acceptable. He was only verifying the website so that the clerks can open that evidence. So don't make it appear as though the House is not admitting electronic evidence. He was only supposed to walk here and present the address, and then senators have a right to follow what is being presented if it's online, or do they not have? Senator Methu.
Honorable Speaker, with tremendous respect to you as the chair, I think it would be a misrepresentation of facts, in my opinion, because the Hansard is actually here. For you to say that you directed Senator Omtata to come to the clerks so that he can present the evidence that he was referring to. When Senator Omtata was, actually, the last time he spoke here, he said that your powers are limited to these precincts of Parliament, because what I am made to understand and what Senator Omtata understood, you directed him to the technical team. You never directed him to the table. You never directed him to the clerks. Just allow me to finish, Speaker.
Please don't.
Because that is what you say. It is on record.
On that.
I mean, these are records that can be extracted, and we had you ready. Please listen to the other people. No problem. You can raise and oppose whatever you want to oppose, but listen to people. We have been listening to you the whole evening. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, the honors of determining which evidence would be acceptable to this House is yours as the person who is presiding upon this House. So what was so difficult in you just opening that URL code that he was giving, and then you can even determine the matter on a later date? You have not determined the matter on Senator Osotsi and many other matters that senators have been asked to substantiate. You just take that website. I agree with Eddie, Senator Eddie. It may be an admissible website or not, but that is upon yourself to go and make that determination. But I actually feel, as you retire to give that communication, because you have said that you are giving that communication tomorrow, if indeed you give that communication with the thinking in your mind that you asked Senator Omtata to come to the table, I actually feel it would be very unfair to Senator Omtata.
Senator Methu, the Hansard will be reviewed because I directed him to walk to the clerk's desk, present to the technical team through the clerk's desk. I did direct that. I think that was clear. If it escaped you, it's there in the Hansard. Senator
You know, Madam Speaker, what has happened this afternoon is very important on how we will be conducting our business, especially those who are not analog, the likes of Omtata who have gone digital. And you know, Madam Speaker, we have a standing order 265 that is supposed to guide us. And you know, he has raised an important issue that he doesn't want to litter the floor with papers.
Senator Osotsi,
so Madam Speaker,
Senator Mugeni, I believe as you raised that issue.
Yeah, the point I wanted to make, because it is incumbent upon the chair maybe to give a considered ruling. Because the other day, you saw I was on the floor referring to a judgment and I was told table. What I did is I just took my phone and shared the document with Senator Cherage. So maybe going forward, what maybe could have happened for Senator Omtata is to be told, share the document with this email to the clerk. And then that should be, then it is displayed. And we are here as PSC to assist this House in conducting business in a very flawless manner. In fact, Madam Speaker, if you read, I think standing under 265(4), it says that a senator can share, who intends to display a document, shall share the document with the clerk for purposes of display. So I believe the moment our clerks here have received that reference, they should be able to display it for us, because we want to make people who have gone digital to have an easy time on the floor of the House. We shouldn't inhibit those who are migrating to the digital way of doing business. We make it facilitative. We should not inhibit, Madam Speaker.
Senator Omugeni, we hear you. You can now resume your seat. Your point is made. The fact of the matter is that Senator Omugeni has been given a chance to clarify the address so that not Senator Omugeni, Senator Omutata was given a chance to actually present the document. And if you read that standing order which you have quoted, it says the senator is entitled to share. That sharing is not the responsibility of the clerk to share. It is the senator to share to the clerk or to the table or to the House. Then it can be displayed for the use by every House. We do not want to open the wrong URL. And what Senator Mutata did, he walked out without clarifying what website he needed to be opened. He did not do that clarification. I will now give a direction or a ruling on the point of order that was raised by Senator Eddy regarding the direction that had been sought on the information that is required on the Janjaweed. I will direct that Senator Omutata, though he's not in the House, he will still be required to table that information to the House because it's important. He was guided by the Speaker, and that ruling still needs to be abided by. Short of that, then it will be a defiance of the direction from the Speaker's set to provide it so that senators can follow the proceeding and see whether Janjaweed in Kenya or not. We can proceed on to the next. Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was standing to contribute on the issue or the motion on the floor.
Senator Dangwa, I thought you were raising an issue on this same, what was under discussion. Otherwise, the next person.
You can give me the opportunity because I'm standing, Madam Speaker. I want to contribute on the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I rise to give my comments on the motion at hand, I was asking myself why we were actually debating this motion. Because, Madam Speaker, I remember even when we were elected, we didn't have something like that. For those who failed it, for those who never made it, for those who made it, I don't see the reason why we are discussing that. But now that it is here, Madam Speaker, I want to commend the Right Honorable Raila Odinga for offering himself to run for the seat, the chairman of AUC, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, some of us have been accused, probably we celebrated, when he failed to capture the seat. But I want to tell you, we never celebrated because Right Honorable Raila Odinga did not get the seat. We celebrated because some of those who are fronting him failed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Madam Speaker, I agree, was best fitted for that seat. But just like 2022 elections, Madam Speaker, he lost because of those who fronted him, Madam Speaker. I wish Raila could have gone for this seat alone. I wish he could have campaigned. He has connection within Africa nations. He knows presidents. They know him. If he could have campaigned alone without president behind him, with him all the time, I tell you, Madam Speaker, Raila could have gotten the seat. Madam Speaker, he lost the seat because of various reasons. And it's good for us to understand, because going forward, we might front another candidate. And it is very sad even to hear a CS, Madam Speaker, calling Kenyans and telling them those who celebrated Raila's downfall have small brains, Madam Speaker. It is quoted, a whole CS said Kenyans should not have celebrated because Kenya lost. I want to tell Kenyans that Kenya never lost. What Kenya lost was billions of money that was used against the budgeting processes, against any laws that we have, Madam Speaker. Kenya lost money. You know, and it's not only losing through campaign and the budgets that was used to campaign for Raila Odinga. We are losing in SHI, we are losing in SHA, we are losing in affordable housing. A whole CS cannot tell Kenyans that Kenya lost. Kenya has been losing as we speak today, Madam Speaker. And that's why we are standing here today to tell that the reason why Kenyans were happy is because you come back and help clear this mess. Because him and the president, they are part of the broad-based government. And you cannot run away. And we cannot also allow the president to use international community to try and cleanse domestic issues, Madam Speaker. So I think it was the prayers of Kenyans that they wanted Raila to come back and do what he does. Either he joins the government and they continue looting, or he speaks for the people, as he has been speaking for the people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
What's your point of order, Senator Osotsi?
Madam Speaker, I rise on standing order number 105. My good friend, Senator Karungo Dhangwa, has said that Honorable Raila and should join Honorable Ruto to loot the country. Madam Speaker is on record that Honorable Raila does not hold any position in this country. Can he substantiate and provide evidence before this House that Honorable Raila and Honorable Ruto have been involved in looting? Madam Speaker, I think we cannot allow these kind of things to go on. I know the narrative is trying to spread, but we in ODM are not going to allow our leader to be scandalized just because he stood for the position of AU and lost. Many other Kenyans would have done that, Madam Speaker, who are not necessarily in government.
Senator Karungo Dhangwa, when you make a serious allegation, it's your responsibility, understanding Order 105, to substantiate your claim or allegation. Can you proceed to substantiate?
Yes, Madam Speaker, you know Senator Osotsi, who is my former chair at CIPIC, is also holding a very big seat at ODM. And he is questioning that Raila Odinga is not holding any office in government. Yet his party has fronted some big CSs who are holding big ministries, like the budget, like the finance, treasury, Madam Speaker. Today, as we speak, we have been whipped, all the chairs, and especially from Mount Kenya, and they are going to ODM again, Madam Speaker. So, and when he stands here to ask me, they are now part of the broad-based, what I call the bread-based government, Madam Speaker, because it is their time to eat. It is their time to eat, but they should do so, knowing that Kenyans are watching, Madam Speaker.
Senator Dhangwa, it is important to use the parliamentary language. When you say bread-based,
you can swallow without eating. You just swallow. Just swallow. Madam Speaker, let me finish. I am a man of few words, Madam Speaker.
Senator Osotsi, you have a point of order?
Again.
Yes, Madam Speaker, you know, I really did not want to keep on interrupting my friend Dhangwa. But you see, the point of order I raised was on the issue that Raila and Ruto are involved in looting. But he has not responded to that. He has only brought in the issue of broad-based, that some people are in government courtesy of ODM. Let him respond to the specific issue of the looting done by the two. That is the issue I wanted him to respond to.
Senator Karungo, you either substantiate or withdraw that.
Very quickly, I can do that, Madam Speaker. And this will come out clear once the statement that I have be given an opportunity on the floor of the House, because a lot of money was used, Madam Speaker. Kenyan government, even Raila himself, he's on record saying that Kenya and the president, the taxpayers' money was used to campaign for him, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that money was not budgeted for. We do not have a kitty to campaign for anybody who is running for any seat across the country, Madam Speaker. If that is not looting, I don't know what you would call that, Madam Speaker. So allow me to ask that question that was asked by the Juja MP, Madam Speaker, saying that they used a lot of money. And instead of substantiating, instead of saying we used this amount of money, they arrested him, Madam Speaker. And after arresting him, only to take him to court and produce a different charge sheet from what they had arrested him for, Madam Speaker. So you can see they are trying to hide. They don't want Kenyans to know how much money was used. So, Madam Speaker, that one will come out clear when I do that. But let me finish by saying that, Madam Speaker.
Senator Dangwa, you need to table that. Do you have it here with you?
The statement?
Yes.
Yes, I do have the statement. I can send it on WhatsApp. Yes, I can do that. I don't know why, Madam Speaker, you are allowing us to have...
Madam Speaker.
One who raised that issue that you substantiate, so let him finish.
Madam
Speaker,
Speaker,
satisfied with the answer.
Substantiation is not done by way of a request for statement. It is done by way of evidence before the House. So he can have a statement seeking for information. But what we want is substantial evidence to be tabled in this House on how Raila and Ruto have been involved in looting. And Madam Speaker, this is a very substantive issue which you need to respond to.
Senator Karungo.
Maybe we can ask the Senator whether is Ruto looting.
Senator Dangwa, you still have not substantiated that issue. Are you able to present the substantiation documents now, or do you need to bring them by tomorrow?
I'll bring them by tomorrow, Madam Speaker.
By tomorrow, when the House rises again tomorrow, you bring that evidence to substantiate on the looting?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Can there be a point of order as I give the ruling? Let him proceed on his feet. You raise it when he's on his feet. Proceed, Senator Dangwa.
Madam Speaker.
What's your point of order, Senator Methu?
Madam Speaker, I also didn't want to interrupt, but I am standing, pursuant to Standing Order 97, and I think I would want to invite you to look at this standing order. I feel that most of us, just as the Deputy Party Leader of ODM actually mentioned, we are misusing Standing Order 105. The Senator has spoken on the same matter, with your permission, thrice. On the same matter of substantiation, he has spoken about it, on it thrice. Our standing orders actually says that nobody should speak on the same matter twice. So how do you keep allowing somebody to keep raising the same standing order, the same point of order on a matter that he has already raised? Why can't somebody consolidate their thoughts and raise them as one standing order or one point of order once? Otherwise, they will keep disrupting people when they are making their contributions. Madam Speaker.
Are you also disrupting by raising that point of order?
I'm not
but
disrupting,
the
I'm
point
just
is,
inviting you to read.
It was an
no
issue
senator
that
shall
was
speak more than once to a question. So why are you lying? Okay.
Senator Methu, yes. Senator Karungo was requested to substantiate, and this was a request from Senator Osotsi. And Senator Osotsi has to respond whether he's satisfied with the substantiation, and I've given a direction on that matter. No need to further push that matter. Karungo, Senator Karungo, will you bring in the substantiation tomorrow? Proceed, Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think we should also look into that standing order of 105, because sometimes it can be used to suppress what the senators are thinking. And because we are the oversights, Madam Speaker, it is their work to substantiate, Madam Speaker. But nevertheless, as I was saying, Madam Speaker, Kenyans want to know how much money was used. How much? Because the Kenyan coffers, the public coffers, must have used a substantial amount of money to campaign for Raila Odinga. The question is, how much was used, Madam Speaker? I remember when Senator Migori was speaking. He said that he paid the air ticket to Addis Ababa. Madam Speaker, you were very lenient to him when he was told to substantiate. And he said, I can do that tomorrow or whatever time, Madam Speaker. And you know, and I know, members of parliament who have been accused of receiving bribes in toilet of 10,000 shillings, nobody, Madam Speaker, would cough millions, there are hundreds of thousands, Madam Speaker, to just go and celebrate. It must have come from the public coffers, Madam Speaker. And that's what we are asking. And that's what we are asking, Madam Speaker. We want to know how much. We want to know a breakdown. How much was used on tickets? How much was used in hotels? How much was used to induce others, Madam Speaker? So, you know, it has been said here, Madam Speaker, yes, we are parliament. We are a parliament. We are supposed to be honorable members, Madam Speaker. But some of the things that have been done here, sometimes we question ourselves whether we are that honorable the way we are pretending to be, Madam Speaker.
Senator Hamida, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, under point 105, I have my ticket, I have my hotel booking, and everyone does. So seriously, you are the one actually and Eddie has collected all evidence. In fact, that's what he's going to do. But then I feel strongly and pained to be told that I was paid for. Or people, it was the government money. We all paid for ourselves, Madam Speaker.
Senator Hamida, that's noted. Senator Eddie was directed by the Speaker to present evidence of those tickets, which I believe you present by tomorrow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Proceed, Senator.
And finally, Madam Speaker, now on a more important angle, Madam Speaker, we, as I was saying, we need to know why we lost, Madam Speaker. And we lost because of 4 things, Madam Speaker. One is the relationship between Kenya and other governments, Madam Speaker. We need to understand that we have to be as diplomatic as possible as a country when it comes to other countries' affairs, Madam Speaker. And I believe Kenya and other countries, and especially SADC, SADC, Madam Speaker, they could have supported us when the Madagascar candidate was eliminated, Madam Speaker. But they didn't. Why? Because, again, for point number 2, the Francophone support, Madam Speaker. Those countries that speak French, Madam Speaker, they went for their candidate. And on a lighter note, the 2 candidates that were running, that is Mohamed Ali Yusuf and Raila Odinga. Mohamed Ali Yusuf could speak English and French. And our candidate could speak English and German, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the last point, the internal issues in Kenya contributed to the downfall of Raila Odinga, Madam Speaker. The internal issues because other countries could not trust Kenya when it comes to fighting for human rights, Madam Speaker. Because of the abductions that are going on in this country, the killings that are going on in this country, and yet nobody is speaking about it. And the Right Honorable Raila Odinga spoke about it the last day of his campaigns when he was being prayed for in Bomas of Kenya. That is the only time he's had in public condemning abductions. I think probably he was told, you have to speak about it, Madam Speaker. So we lost because we could not be trusted to fight for other Africans, Madam Speaker. We have Kizza Besigye, the opposition leader in Uganda. The person who is supposed to represent Africa never even commented about that, Madam Speaker. So we lost because we pretended to be diplomatic. We pretended that we understand the problems of Africa. Yet it was a contest for somebody to prove, if I can get Africa, why not Kenya again, Madam Speaker? So Raila was used as a bait by the government They never wanted him to win. And that's why they did what they did, Madam Speaker. And I'm so sorry, and I say pole to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, that you did not lose because of your person. You did not lose because you didn't have what it takes. You lost because of those who are fronting you, just like you lost in 2022 because of those who are fronting you then. So next time, choose the right people, those people who have the blessings of this country. But next time, I believe if he runs without them, he will make it. I don't know what, but he will make it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Karungu Thangwa. Next is Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to also make my contribution. Mr. Speaker, just like many Kenyans, I was so deeply disappointed that Kenya lost the quest to take the chairmanship of the African Union. Mr. Speaker, we all know, Mr. Speaker, that Africa belongs to all the 6 or so regions, Mr. Speaker. And as a person who has lived, gone to school, represents a county in East Africa, it could only have been fair that a candidate from East Africa takes over as the next chair of the AU. Mr. Speaker, AU belongs to all the 55 nations of Africa. Therefore, we want to feel a sense of belonging, Mr. Speaker. It's like a father who has many children. All these children need to have a sense of belonging. They need to feel that they are part of a family. So that was a very painful loss, not only for Kenya, but for the regional bloc called East Africa. And Mr. Speaker, if I was a president, this is the time I would have asked my brothers in the East African bloc to walk the talk. Mr. Speaker, I was in State House when President Yoweri Museveni rose and assured us Kenyans that he will be in Addis Ababa to second Raila Amolo Odinga's candidature. But the reports that we received from Addis indicate that Yoweri Museveni did not take time personally to travel to Addis Ababa to not only vote for us, but to also help us in campaigning. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's not easy to convince another president to vote for you. You need to have as many presidents as possible to support your candidature. So I hope that our presidents from the East African bloc will consider whether we will change the idea of leadership within the AU so that it becomes rotational. How come, Mr. Speaker, that in the 23 years that AU has been in existence, the Francophone countries have taken the position of chair for 19 years, and Anglophone only 4 years, Mr. Speaker. And yet, Kenya and other Anglophone countries make their contribution to AU. So, at times, Mr. Speaker, just like the way we do it in IALA, Mr. Speaker, you're privileged to be a lawyer, you know it, that the presidency of the East African Law Society is rotational. If this year the chairmanship goes to Kenya, next year the chairmanship goes to Tanzania, the other year it will go to Uganda. That way, you don't feel the pain of contributing to a body that will never allow you to take a leadership position. We cannot have an association or a union that is supposed to bring all countries together, but others have ganged up to ensure that other regions can never ascend to the chairmanship. Mr. Speaker, because the salary that pays that chair is also my taxes. By being taxed and by my country making a contribution, then I'm also having an expectation that one day, one time, I will proudly stand up and say, a fellow countryman or woman is chairing AU. So, in terms of going forward, I hope when there is a summit of the African Union, our President William Ruto, will put this issue on the table so that we can have, let us have ECOWAS in West Africa, sharing. Next time, let it go to SADC, the way the other time we had South Africa. Then it can go to the COMESA region. Then it comes to East Africa. Senator Methu, we want fairness. The second point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, is that it's not Raila Odinga who lost this election. The person who lost this election is our president and his foreign policy, Mr. Speaker. Because the way we handled this matter, Mr. Speaker, it left us with very little option of winning, Mr. Speaker. Because when you are doing a campaign like this, you must be conscious of the geopolitics, what your actions will mean to the person you want to vote for you, Mr. Speaker. Because even if the way it is said, and I know it's true, that President Tshisekedi is a personal friend of Raila Amolo Odinga, how does he feel, Mr. Speaker, when, again, and I'm using my words very carefully, when it is rumored that somebody has hosted the M23 leadership in Nairobi? Tshisekedi is a human being, Mr. Speaker. He will bolt. How will Kagame feel if the actions of a country that is, fronting a candidate seems to be hostile to the interests of Rwanda or South Africa or Tanzania, Mr. Speaker? I want to appeal to my president, President William Ruto, to talk less, do his foreign policy at times under the carpet, to avoid stepping on so many president's toes, Mr. Speaker, because they are also human beings. Everything that you do here impacts on your relations with another country, either positively or negatively, Mr. Speaker. And I know the PS Foreign Affairs, Singhuei, is a colleague, is a lawyer like me. And I feel so proud, I feel honored when I see a lawyer occupying that position of secretary in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, Mr. Speaker. But I also want to speak to my friend Singhuei to also be very cautious before speaking on a matter that may touch on our relations with other countries, Mr. Speaker. You remember, Mr. Speaker, SADC wrote a letter. P.S. Singhuei responded with a public criticism. That did not go well with SADC countries, Mr. Speaker. So, really, the best thing they say is that you should learn from your failures. Let's learn from our failures. What happened to us as a country? We should sit down, evaluate, and take some key lessons from what happened, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, and God Almighty is my witness, and my pastors in Nyamira are my witness, I told my pastors that instead of going to Addis Ababa, I'll be on my knees in Nyamira praying for Baba, Kenya's candidate, to win AU chairmanship in Addis. I was at Mesowa SDA in Ikonge with pastors, and we prayed for Raila Amolo Odinga, Mr. Speaker. Those who chose to accompany him to Addis Ababa, that was good. But how did we conduct ourselves, Mr. Speaker? If you have been a member of Law Society, and I know you have been, and you are a member in good standing, you know what happened when I was the president of Law Society of Kenya. We came up with a very good initiative to open the borders in East Africa so that lawyers in Tanzania can come and practice in Kenya. And lawyers in Kenya can go and practice in Uganda, and vice versa, Mr. Speaker. But when we were making that declaration in Speak Munyonyo Hotel in Uganda, the contingent from Kenya was the largest in that meeting. And they came there loaded, they had money, Mr. Speaker. So they painted Kampala. And you know, when the proposal was put on the table, the Ugandans were like, if this is the way these guys are behaving, even before we open the borders, if we open the borders, they'll take over Uganda. The Tanzanians said, if these guys are allowed to practice in Tanzania, they will take over. And Mr. Speaker, whereas we acted in good faith and opened the borders, we have Ugandans who are practicing in Kenya today, courtesy of that decision. But Uganda and Tanzania have never opened the borders for us because of the way we conducted ourselves. So, Mr. Speaker, at times, the cheering squad, the delegation that accompanied our candidate to Addis Ababa, Mr. Speaker, should have quietly given moral support to our candidate without loading it on the other countries, other presidents, because social media travels faster than even normal news, Mr. Speaker. So next time, let's learn. If it's not a football match, if it's a football match, you show you are mighty and you shout. But if it's something that is diplomatic, Mr. Speaker, let's be sensitive as to how we conduct ourselves. Because our conduct can irritate and annoy people who could have voted for us, Mr. Speaker. The third thing, Mr. Speaker, is our own domestic policy. Because we should speak about this matter very, very candidly, Mr. Speaker. At times, the way we run our domestic policy shapes the perception of our country, other countries about us, Mr. Speaker. So, what has been happening within our borders, we should also go back, look at the mirror, and ask ourselves, out there, how do other countries in Africa look at us as Kenya? How is our human rights record, Mr. Speaker? Have we created a country that has people who are happy? Because, Mr. Speaker, every year you get an index released on the happiest people in the world. Which country? I think currently it is, if I'm not wrong, it's Norway, followed by, I think, Australia and others. So we also need to know, have we created an happy population as a country? Mr. Speaker, when somebody was contributing on this floor here and mentioned Shah, Mr. Speaker, somebody from Nyamira sent me a note. It was given at a hospital called Christine Marian for a patient called Douglas Nyang'au, whom they were trying to admit this afternoon in that hospital. And Mr. Speaker, what he told me is that that hospital told them they don't accept patients to be admitted using that SHA card. That SHA should only be used in public hospitals. Yet, Mr. Speaker, we are priding ourselves as a country that has rolled out universal health coverage for everybody. You know? Another one, Mr. Speaker, sent me a message and said, Senator, remind the president that our people are dying because the SHA card is not being accepted in private hospitals, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a patient aged 94 years called Martha Nyamwange, I've just been told, was taken to a hospital called Medifort Hospital in Kisii. Mr. Speaker, that hospital, which had no sympathy on this senior citizen, 94-year-old, only accepted coverage on that SHA card on bed only. Then what happens to the medicine, to the surgeon, to the surgical expenses incurred in the hospital. And then we are telling people that SHA is working. It's not right. That's a lie, Mr. Speaker. So let us also look at our domestic issues. How are we treating our people, Mr. Speaker? This SHA thing is a problem, Mr. Speaker. In some counties, like Nyamira, now we are burying people on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We used to do burials only on Friday, Mr. Speaker. We represent our people, Mr. Speaker. We cannot sit here and shut our mouths from some of these issues, Mr. Speaker. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, the impact of Raila's loss in our country here. Mr. Speaker, we should guard our mouths at times. I listened to my good friend, Senator Cheragay. It's unfortunate that he's not here, making statements saying, oh, now that Raila Amolo Odinga has lost the AU chairmanship, we want to offer him position of Prime Minister. Cheragay or Nelson Koech, Mr. Speaker, are not the right people to tell ODM what position to be given. They are not the right people, Mr. Speaker. If the president wants to give former Prime Minister the position of Prime Minister, he should do it in a manner that respects the Constitution first. I sat in NADCO, Mr. Speaker, and we made a recommendation and even gave powers to that office of Prime Minister. If His Excellency the President wants Raila Amolo Odinga to get that position, the right thing to do is to fully implement that NADCO report, not to send junior senators like Senator Cheragay to go and make announcements in the streets, Mr. Speaker. That is not the way you enhance unity in our country. If that position needs to be there, let it be entrenched in the Constitution. Let there be a discussion on who should occupy that seat through party organs, Mr. Speaker, but not through talk shows on TV, making pronouncements through the media. That is demeaning, Mr. Speaker. And it will send the wrong signals, Mr. Speaker, that there is no good faith from our president on this matter that was meant to take Raila to be the chair of AU. Finally, as I finish, Mr. Speaker, I join Ugandans, Mr. Speaker, in making an appeal to President Yoweri Museveni to ensure that Basije is released from prison, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you read a book called Red Notice, you will think that the episodes captured in that book about the happenings in Russia under Putin are playing out in our neighboring country, Mr. Speaker. We want, within East Africa community, to respect human rights, Mr. Speaker, to show love, to show tolerance, Mr. Speaker, to our opponents, Mr. Speaker. So we urge our senior statesman in the region, President Yoweri Museveni, to have sympathy and a soft heart on that leader of opposition called Basije. I hope the unfortunate thing will not happen, Mr. Speaker, where Basije will die because he has not been able to get medical help under the watch of President Yoweri Museveni. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Senior Counsel Okongo Mugeni. And as you resume your seat, I wish from the chair to remind you that the NADCO report was presented before the JLAC, which I chair, and we've done a report which is already part of the reports which will be processed in the course of this session. That is something that is already in the order paper for the coming week, I believe. And secondly, you made reference to the Principal Secretary of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Singwei. You guys truly remember once worked with him in the law of practice, and I can confirm that the accolades you gave to him are the accolades that he exhibited prior to his decision to, of course, resign as he assumed the current public office that he's holding. And so that is a proper presentation of a colleague's professional status. Senator Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The candidature of Right Honorable Raila Odinga presented the country with an opportunity to be at the helm of the leadership of AU. And the benefits of this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, are obvious, and they would have accrued to us as a country, regardless of whether you supported him or not, Mr. Speaker. I am convinced that Kenya presented the best candidate. His public profile, what he stands for in African integration and Pan-Africanism speaks for itself, Mr. Speaker, and to me, it is a missed opportunity for Africa. I want to congratulate Right Honorable Raila Odinga and indeed His Excellency William Samoei Ruto for a spirited campaign done across the country. No efforts were spared, no resources was spared. They met everybody regardless of the stand or in the face of regional politics. They were not intimidated by the narrative. They met everyone that needed to be met. And for that show of togetherness, putting their political differences aside and going for this as a country, I must congratulate them, Mr. Speaker. Winning the first two rounds in the election, Mr. Speaker, is not a small achievement. Garnering 22 votes in the second round is not a small achievement in the face of regional politics that were at play, like I said. And for that, I want to congratulate Raila Odinga again. After the defeat, I happened to be one of the Kenyans who accompanied Raila Odinga to offer moral support. And after the defeat, Raila Odinga and the president gathered Kenyans who were there in a dinner, for a Thanksgiving dinner. And again, in a show of national solidarity, they thanked us. And that spirit of national solidarity is a big win for us as a country. And I want to urge the country that we should build on it in every aspect of our country so that we work together as one. That way it is easier even to disseminate development in every region, in every part of this country, when we are working together. And having said that, finally, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the AUC Chair, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, for his win. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Karen Nyamu. I'm seeing a request from Senator Nderitu Kinywa, who is presently not in the House, and therefore, honorable members, in the absence of any other member keen on contributing to this motion, I'll ask the Senate Majority Leader, who is the mover of the motion, to proceed to reply. Senator Aaron, proceed to reply.
Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to appreciate all the senators that have taken time to speak on this very important motion. Initially, when I conceptualized this idea, my desire was that we will take time to reflect as a country and positively evaluate what has been a fairly decent run by former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and a very good representation of the country at a global stage. However, Mr. Speaker, to my utter dismay, I've seen a few people try to reduce it to be a contest about what President Ruto got wrong, as if he was on trial or as if he was the one that was running a campaign You know, Mr. Speaker, being a politician, I have come to live with the reality that people will always see fault even when there's nothing to fault. And there are people who just for clickbait and likes on TikTok and Facebook, Mr. Speaker, will say anything, even on topics that they are least prepared about. I listen to many people ignorantly speak about the conflict in DRC and matters on the global stage with very little, limited, scant information, Mr. Speaker, about either the position of Kenya on such matters and how it may have affected voting. I said when I was moving this motion today in the morning, Mr. Speaker, that it will be completely ignorant of anyone to try and first draw a deduction of this run by Prime Minister Raila based on speculations about who may have voted for us or not, for the very simple reason that this was a voting by secret ballot. So by the time you're coming here to tell us, oh, you know, because of DRC, I don't know, because of Sarawi and this other one, we did not get vote from the... Where did you know that those countries voted for us or they didn't vote for us, Mr. Speaker? There are 22 countries that stood firm with Kenya and our candidate for all the 6 rounds, Mr. Speaker. There has been no scientific way of establishing which are those countries, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, you know, you get mesmerized sometimes at the ignorance and the seriousness with which people posit those arguments before the House, Mr. Speaker, thinking that perhaps there's some revelation that they got overnight on who may have cast their vote in support of us or otherwise. Even if it was a trial on our stand on diplomatic issues, Mr. Speaker, I explained here in the morning. The first person to raise that argument was Senator Onyonka. And you know, the record bears me witness. Every time I challenged him, whether it was on the issue of DRC or the issue of Palestine and Gaza, the war in Gaza, Mr. Speaker, he said, let's keep that matter aside. Because I was able to demonstrate to them that the positions they have been arguing in televisions and here in Parliament are nothing but display of pure ignorance. Mr. Speaker, our stand is known on all these things. So I don't know why people want to reduce it to be an evaluation of the performance of the president in the international stage. I don't think there has ever been a president who has profiled Kenya in the international stage the way President William Ruto has been able to do it. Travel with him to international meetings and you will appreciate what a good job he has been able to do. There is a lot of interest in this country. That's why I asked the other day, and somebody mentioned to me, told me, Senator, we don't understand your country anymore. Because reading online, reading newspapers, Mr. Speaker, listening to some of the senators like the ones that were speaking here, Senator Sifuna and the like, you would think that there is absolutely nothing going on in this country. Yet, investors, people that keep a keen, objective eye on the progress that is being made in Kenya are advising people, Mr. Speaker, that if there is a country to keep an eye on the African continent, it is Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Not one, not twice, not 3 times, Mr. Speaker, have I seen articles by people who objectively analyze the performance of countries and the things that are being done, both locally and the positioning that has been done of this country in the international stage, Mr. Speaker, that they appreciate that there is progress being made. 2 years ago, Mr. Speaker, we were at a debt distress level. We were basically on the verge, staring at an total economic collapse, Mr. Speaker. The president has been able to move the country from that particular state up to a point now, Mr. Speaker, where we are stable, where we are going to the market, where even global ranking institutions are beginning to paint a positive outlook, Mr. Speaker, of our economy. And you just find people here say, oh, hey, this and that is not right. Mr. Speaker, in fact, it was a mistake. Even on the part, I want to fold the office of a speaker, Mr. Speaker, because in our standing orders, you cannot discuss the conduct of a friendly head of state without a substantive motion. It's in our standing orders, Mr. Speaker. Yet I have seen people discuss friendly nations and the local matters in that particular country, Mr. Speaker, with wanton recklessness. That should not be the case. Senator Cherargei tried, Mr. Speaker, to bring it to the attention of the Speaker when that matter first showed up this afternoon, when we had the visiting delegation from Uganda, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, maybe the way in which he sought the attention of the Speaker was not impressive enough, and the Speaker reserves the right of whether to allow one to make their point or not, but it is not proper. And many senators need to be acquiesced themselves with our standing orders, Mr. Speaker, that do not allow that kind of a behavior, Mr. Speaker. Even this issue that people are talking about of what happened today, that, oh, you are hosting rebels, this or the other. Kenya is a proud member of the international community. Many times, people rush here when their countries are in conflict, Mr. Speaker. The same people that are faulting us and saying, why did you allow Besigye to be picked and they are lifted from Nairobi, today have a problem that part of the faction that is warring in Sudan is here in the country. So which is which? If you want us to lock the country to anybody that is under siege in their own country, Mr. Speaker, then let that be your stand. But you cannot on one hand say that you need to keep this one here, but the other one you need to release. Kenya, over the years, has made significant contribution to regional stability, including almost every other East African country, Mr. Speaker, that every other time they've had conflict, people have negotiated here. I want to believe that part of negotiation, Mr. Speaker, includes allowing the warring parties, Mr. Speaker, to have access to your country. Who says if one of the entities has come and pitched tent here, Mr. Speaker, that we support whatever they are doing? We are a proud member of the international stage, Mr. Speaker, and I know for a fact that when people seek to either congregate here or find a safe haven if they feel unsafe in their country, there are millions of refugees that continue to ply their trade, Mr. Speaker, or make a living in this country as they go about their business. You remember even the issue of DRC a few months ago, where when DRC protested and said, why did you allow so-and-so to speak? Our answer was plain and simple. This is a free country. When people come here, they enjoy the rights. This is a country where you insult even the president and nobody does anything about you. So it will be very difficult for us to reserve and say only Kenyans are allowed certain rights and foreigners are not permitted of the same, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to request the colleagues that want to do an evaluation of Kenya's performance on the diplomatic stage to perhaps present a substantive motion, come before the Senate Standing Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, Mr. Speaker, and raise the issue that they have. But to reduce such an important motion, you know, Mr. Speaker, where you find you want to score cheap points and appear as if you're the one who's most knowledgeable, you know, on these matters which you are ill-prepared to comment about, because the things that you're speaking for, if people who understand things better listen to you, they cringe in their seats because they are wondering who elected this one. Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with colleagues that there are matters, I said this in the morning when I was moving this motion, that there are things that should divide us. We can surely have difference of opinion when it comes to matters local politics. But when shall we ever grow and mature politically to appreciate that, for example, when a Kenyan shows up at the international stage, Mr. Speaker, then they represent our flag. They represent us as an entire people. If you are not a candidate in that particular exercise, competing with them, Mr. Speaker, then the least that you can do, look away if you don't like that particular person. At least at the very worst, Mr. Speaker, just keep quiet. But if you are a patriot, take time to celebrate them and lend their support, Mr. Speaker. But not to do the kind of things that we saw being done when the Prime Minister was making his run, touring African countries. There are people who posting pictures when President said, oh, today I had dinner with former Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga. You go to the comment sections, Kenyans are even more than citizens of that particular country with their stupid tribal politics, Mr. Speaker, importing it all the way to the international stage. And then you find leaders here in this house trying to justify that, oh, yeah, let people express themselves. Express what? Ignorance. Mr. Speaker, leadership also involves telling people that this is not right, that we don't agree with you in this particular. Why are you a leader then? I thought a leader, part of your duty, is also to show the way in certain matters that you're well prepared for. Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate those that understood the spirit of this motion and took their time to critically evaluate and celebrate that a Kenyan, a prominent one, an eminent one at that, Mr. Speaker, gave a good account of himself on the international stage, and now people know better about Kenya and our credentials. I did mention, Mr. Speaker, that it is okay for people to have their opinion. But you know, the most ignorant of the lot, Mr. Speaker, are the ones that have tried to reduce this conversation to be about the evaluation of President William Ruto. He was not a candidate there. Prime Minister Raila Odinga himself said it on that night on the 15th, that there is nothing that the government of Kenya led by President William Ruto stopped at or withheld in terms of support in his candidature. And he said, I appreciate that about this. So who else can come here and tell us, oh, you know, this was not done right, this should have been this way or the other? If the candidate himself appreciates that the country did everything that was humanly possible, and we only ended up losing because elections are what they are. Sometimes people choose not to see or appreciate issues the way you perceive them. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, let it go on record that this House appreciates the decent run, the good presentation at the international stage of this eminent Kenyan, that there are lessons that the country has learned, so that in future, because there will be other Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, who will show up at the international stage looking for employment opportunities, either in global institutions, Mr. Speaker, or even at the UN, Mr. Speaker. And there are things that we can surely do better as a country. I want to appreciate, Mr. Speaker, the seconder of this motion, Senator Moses Kajwang, because it is he who reminded us that with this negative energy, very soon we will transfer it even to matters like sports, things which ordinarily have always united us. That you will find Harambee Stars playing, and because maybe there's a certain player that you don't like, or this or the other, Mr. Speaker, then you'll find people, you know, either cheering the other country or wishing ill fate on our own team. We must nip it at the bud while it is still early, Mr. Speaker, and be able to tell each other. You know, the other day, Mr. Speaker, we laid to rest celebrated veteran journalist Leonard Mambo Mbotela. It is on such matters that he will ask, Je, hu ni ungwana? Is this really decent of us, Mr. Speaker, to continue to do these kind of things? Therefore, I want to conclude, Mr. Speaker, by expressing the three things that this motion intended to do when we set it out this morning, which is, one, to express the thanks of the Senate to the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, to appreciate that he gave a good account of this country, that this Senate notes that despite the fact that he may not have won, Mr. Speaker, that it was not because of anything in his own capacity, but given that this was a competition and there were other judges, Mr. Speaker, that they may have held different views. But as a country, we are proud of him and the work that he was able to do. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is to record the thanks of this House to His Excellency the President William Ruto for stepping up, Mr. Speaker, and ensuring that a man whom they fiercely competed in the last presidential election and was separated on only by barely 200,000 votes, Mr. Speaker, enjoyed the support and the full backing of the government of Kenya with no restraint, Mr. Speaker. And that is what a decent country should do, because this is an important job. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm reminded, I saw last weekend another member of parliament from the National Assembly. I don't want to take him seriously anyway. I think he's the MP for Juja or something. I don't want to take him seriously because I read elsewhere, I don't know if it is true, that the only document that gentleman has is a driver's license. Therefore, the kind of things you're saying about, I don't know how much was spent, is expected of such characters, Mr. Speaker. But the point is, Kenya should not have held back.
Leader of Majority,
yes.
I may as well remind you that the said member has since recorded a statement before the police and has been charged before court.
No, today he was charged for forgery, not for the misleading comments that he said about what Kenya did, I don't know, in the candidature. Apart from having a driver's license, probably, which is also maybe forged, Mr. Speaker, probably even the other documents, that is what the court will be told later on, that we record appreciation to the President for the kind of support that was accorded to Prime Minister Raila by the Republic of Kenya. Third and final, Mr. Speaker, is that the Senate of the Republic of Kenya record a congratulation to His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf on his election as the chairperson of the Commission, AUC Commission, on Saturday, 15th February 2025. We are true Democrats, Mr. Speaker, and even though we competed and it was intense and difficult, the winners eventually have their say. And therefore, because we are part of this African continent, Mr. Speaker, we will have to work with him. I pointed out earlier that, for example, the President is leading the reform exercise on the AU, Mr. Speaker. And part of the things that he'll have to achieve will include working with this gentleman. Much as we felt very bad that he grabbed the trophy that we so desperately needed, Mr. Speaker, we still congratulate and wish him well, because his success is the success of Africa. The success of Africa is the success of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we should take such moments to celebrate them, much as we may disagree with him on many of the things. The only thing that perhaps maybe I will point out as a simple measure of courtesy, Mr. Speaker, is to be gracious even in victory, Mr. Speaker, because I saw a video. Probably maybe the people that did the translation may not be honest. I'm aware that we live in the information age, and sometimes not everything is accurate. I saw a video of him somewhere back home in Djibouti alongside his president, and he said certain things that perhaps didn't sit well with the rest of us as a country. But who knows? It could be the wrong translation. Since I don't speak Arabic, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to bear witness, but I want to believe that that gentleman will serve the continent of Africa and celebrate and do all the things that we need to do. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to end it at that and celebrate what has been achieved and said this afternoon. The various unhelpful comments notwithstanding, but many colleagues, 90% of the people that spoke actually stayed on tune. Apart from the usual, Mr. Speaker, that you'd expect in any political conversation, I still appreciate that many people rose to the occasion and appreciated what this motion was about. It was just about celebrating an eminent Kenyan, appreciating the president, and congratulating the eventual winner. The long and short of all these things that have been said this afternoon were about those three things, which I believe have been ably done by members of this House, using whatever form of shade and color that they have said. With those many comments, many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order number 66.3, I beg to request that the deferring of the question be held to a later date. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senate Majority Leader. And pass on to Standing Order 66.3. The putting of the question to this motion is hereby deferred to the next sitting of the House. Very well. Clerk, you may call the next order. Now, honorable members, for the convenience of the House, order number 14, order number 15, order number 16, order number 17, order number 18, order number 19, order number 20, order number 21, and 22 are hereby deferred to the next sitting of the House. And with that, honorable members, we may rise. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 20th of February 2025 at 2:30 p.m.